Okay, in this video, we're going to take a look at snapshots and how you can use snapshots to save your virtual environment. If you look here, you can see something that might look familiar, and this is the base configuration, and you can see app 1, client 1, DC1, edge 1, and iNet 1. These are the 5 servers that participate in the regular base configuration. So after you finish the base configuration, you can take a snapshot, and you can see here in the snapshot section that I've taken a snapshot of the base configuration. So if I want to return to the base configuration, if I want to bring any particular virtual machine back to the base configuration, I just right click it, then click apply, and you'll notice this little green arrow is going to move under base configuration. And if I wanted to return all the participants of the base configuration to the base configuration state, you just click on each one, right click on the base configuration, and you see the green arrow move under base configuration to show that it's been reset to the base configuration. We'll reset edge 1 now and move it to the base configuration. The green arrow moves up, and then we'll finish off with iNet 1, and we'll apply that as well. So that's how you bring the machines back into the base configuration. And then when you want to start the virtual machines, there's a number of ways you can do it. You can start them one at a time, and you could do that by clicking on the virtual machine name in the virtual machines list and right clicking it and clicking start, and that'll start the virtual machine. Now typically there's an order that you'll prefer, which typically is going to begin with starting the domain controller, and you'll want the domain controller to start up before you start up any other virtual machines, because the best way to start the virtual machines is to start the machines that contain services or applications that other services and applications are going to be dependent on when they start up. And of course, everyone's dependent upon a domain controller, so we're going to start with the domain controller. And then after the domain controller starts up, and you can kind of keep track of it here, or you can double click on the virtual machine here in the console, and you can see it's just about started up. We'll minimize that. Then we'll start the other virtual machines. Now, depending on the environment, you may have other machines that contain services on which other virtual machines are going to be dependent on. In the base configuration, that's not so much the case. So what we could do is we can click on each one of the other virtual machines after the domain controller starts up, hold down the control key on the keyboard so that we select the other ones, right click on one of the selected ones, and then click start. And that will cause all these virtual machines to start up at the same time so that we don't have to go ahead and start them one at a time. So that's a convenience. Now suppose we did a bunch of stuff to the base configuration and finished up a test lab guide. At the end of the test lab guide, we always recommend that the reader snapshot the configuration. And to do that, they shut down all the windows, and then they shut down the virtual machine, and then they save a snapshot. So what we can do, and this is on Windows Server 2008 R2 Hyper-V, we can select each one of these. We just select them by holding down the control key. And then right-clicking on one of the selected virtual machines, and then click Snapshot. And you can see that the snapshots are being saved. If I expand this a bit, you can see status, taking snapshot, succeeded, succeeded, succeeded. Okay, now if we click on each one of these, we see that there's a new snapshot under the base configuration, because that's where we started. And it's typically the name, not typically, it's always the name of the virtual machine, and then the date and time when the snapshot was taken. So we'd rename that, we'll click on it, and then we can right click on it and click rename. and we can call this, say, TLG test for SSTP. And we do that for each one. Now we don't want to have to retype that each time, so we'll just click on that once so it's selected and press Control-C to copy that to the clipboard, and we'll do the same thing with each of the other snapshots that we've taken. And it's important to name each of the snapshots the same, because when we restart all the virtual machines that represent the end of a specific test lab guide, we want to make sure that all of them have the same name, so that when we start them up at the same state where they left off. And then you could go ahead and work on them again. And so you could do the same thing with any other test lab guide. And I could right-click, say I want to go back to this one, Test Lab Guide UAG Direct Access Service Pack 1 Release Candidate DCA. We're demonstrating the Direct Access Connectivity Assistant. Well, we just right-click on each one and apply on each one. Now, you might not remember, so you're going to have to click on each of the machines and say, okay, this one participated in that test lab guide, this one participated in the same test lab guide, and this one did, and you'll click through them. But as you work with the virtual machines that are participating in your test lab guides, they're going to become pretty familiar with which machines were in there, and you'll be able to find them in your snapshots collection. Another nice thing about your snapshots is that you can export them. So let's say that you wanted to export one of your collections of VMs that represented the end result of a particular test lab guide. You could just right-click on it and click Export, and then it would ask you where you want to export it, and you would give it a folder name and location, and it'll export all the files, and then you can take that entire folder and copy it to another machine and import that. And maybe I'll show you that process in another video. So that's not everything you need to know about snapshots and restoration, but it's enough to get you up and running with your test lab guide work.